And this year, on that birthday party, we go to a hotel room, we got some girls, and we have drugs and everything. And we're in there, and the police came in, and they found us in there, found the girls, and found drugs.
On the field, Michael Irvin was a legend, but off it, his life took a turn for the worst. Sanders witnessed it all. Furthermore, the information he is currently disclosing reveals an aspect of Iran that the general public was unaware of. However, what Sanders saw inside the notorious White House of the Cowboys demonstrated the extent of the disarray. The dark side was visible.
Deion intervention, drogue, and violence.
Deion Primetime Sanders, Michael Irvin's closest friend and former teammate, is the only person who truly comprehends the depths of his troubles. What Sanders saw during the Cowboys' most difficult years exposes a terrible truth about one of the best players in NFL history. A reality so sinister that it almost ruined everything Irvin had strived for. You have never heard the entire story before. The story of how drugs, violence, and unbridled anger nearly killed an NFL great is told from the perspective of those who experienced it. In the mid-1990s, the Cowboys were living in a fantasy world. Players felt they were invincible, above the law, and immune to consequences after winning 3 Super Bowl titles in 4 years. This perilous way of thinking was personified by Michael Irvin. The first significant breach in this facade occurred on March 4, 1996, when Irvin and teammate Alfredo Roberts were taken into custody at a home in the Dallas area. This wasn't your typical arrest. Even seasoned NFL observers would be shocked by this window into a world of excess.
And then March 5th is my birthday, and so I have one big party, hang out, have fun, and then that's it. I'm starting back training. And then I didn't do anything. I was just training football, and I would do this every year. And this year, on that birthday party, we go to a hotel room, we got some girls, and we have drugs and everything, and we're in there, and the police came in, and they found us in there, found the girls, and found drugs.
Along with 2 women who were identified as escorts, police also found 3 g of cocaine, more than an ounce of marijuana, and drug paraphernalia in the hotel room. The scene served as a stark reminder of how far the Cowboys culture had devolved from the disciplined championship teams of only a few years prior. However, narcotics weren't the only reason for this arrest. It revealed a much darker culture of depravity that had been going on under the NFL's nose. The infamous White House, a rented home that functioned as the hub of the Cowboys' party culture, was discovered during the investigation. Betrayal was the source of the exposure. Irvin's former assistant, Dennis Padini, had secretly recorded Iran buying cocaine and sold the footage to WFAA-TV, a local television station. The way Iran found out about this invasion was even more startling.
And I remember Leon Lett called me a couple weeks before and said, "Hey man, I think we've been infiltrated. You need to shut down the White House." And I said to Leon, "This is not a movie. This is not a movie. So we're not shutting down the White House."
Irvin's answer demonstrates the conceit and denial that defined this era. Despite a teammate's warning, he didn't think his extravagant empire could be overthrown. In the end, Irvin entered a no-contest plea to felony cocaine possession, which resulted in a $10,000 fine, $800 in community service, and a 5-game NFL suspension. However, what transpired 2 years later would indicate something even more dangerous: Iran's potential for catastrophic violence, if the drug arrest had exposed his carelessness. At training camp in Wichita Falls, Texas, July 29, 1998 began like any other day, and between practices, players were getting haircuts, unwinding, and getting ready for what would turn out to be one of the most notorious events in NFL history. New to the Cowboys, 318-pound offensive lineman Everett Mayseaver was attempting to make a name for himself. The seasoned superstar Irvin had made it his mission to inform rookies and new players about the hierarchy of the squad. The events that followed almost ended tragically.
Was the new guy. Man, I'm working and we messing with Everett, And Big E and the guys, they started messing with him. You can't let that little receiver mess, dude. And everybody, oh man, over here, cause we were trying to get, okay. And then Everett, cause we had drinks, he get up, dude, to be truthful, and I'm gonna let people know, I was getting my ass kicked. This big old joker was whooping my butt.
The conflict quickly became more intense. What had begun as normal locker room hazing turned into something far more severe. Irvin refused to give up, even though he was much smaller than Mayseaver. He made a choice that would follow him for the rest of his life when the physical altercation went against him. Irvin stabbed Mayseaver in the neck with barber scissors, resulting in a 2-inch cut that needed 20 stitches. The wound may have been fatal because it was so close to Masiver's carotid artery. As teammates rushed to stop the bleeding and understand what had happened, blood spurted from the wound.
Should never have grabbed the scissors, but I was in fight or flight mode, you know what I mean? And dude, I went back to my room right after that, and there's blood everywhere, blood all over me. And Big Cat came in and he said, man.
Irvin's intense terror and the intricate dynamics within the Cowboys organization were made clear in the immediate aftermath of the stabbing. Covered in his teammates' blood, Irvin withdrew to his room, certain that he had killed someone and would be imprisoned for the rest of his life. However, the subsequent events would turn out to be even more startling than the actual stabbing. Masiver declined to file charges despite the seriousness of his wounds, a choice that exposed both his personality and the perverted allegiance that united the Cowboys.
Michael, you know, he said, I know the severity of what would happen if the truth got out. And he said, man, I don't want to take you away from your kids like you almost took me away from mine, dude. That was.
This act of kindness by a man who was on the verge of death at the hands of his teammate illustrates the intricate ties that exist in professional sports. Masiver realized that Iran's conviction would destroy his family in addition to ending his profession. No criminal charges were brought after Jerry Jones allegedly paid an undisclosed payment to guarantee Masiver's silence. It was getting harder for Deion Sanders, who had joined the Cowboys in 1995, to see his buddies descend into violence and self-destruction. Although Sanders had a larger-than-life personality, it was based on family values and faith, which contrasted sharply with Iran's careless actions. During this time, Sanders and Irvin had a complicated relationship. They understood each other's histories and were friends, teammates, and fellow Floridians. However, Sanders was also witnessing his friend kill himself, and he refused to watch helplessly.
One time I was out there wilding out. Bad, man, just crazy, white, acting crazy. And Deion showed up at the house. And he said, hey, man, enough, this gotta stop. I mean, Deion bowled up like, let's go. Right now, we're gonna fight right here, right?
Sanders' readiness to physically confront Iran when necessary and the depth of their friendship are both demonstrated by this intervention. It also emphasizes how far Iran had fallen, to the point where even his closest friends had to stop him from acting destructively. It wasn't just teammates who were using violence. When Johnny Hernandez, a Dallas police officer, discovered that Iran had an affair with his fiancée in 1996, he paid a hitman $30,000 to assassinate Irvin. Hernandez received a 12-year prison sentence after it was discovered that the hitman was an undercover police officer. However, the event brought to light the hazardous environment Irvin was working in. These weren't single occurrences. Rather, they were a part of a pattern of actions that put Irvin's hard work at risk. The man who had risen over poverty and hardship to become one of the NFL's best receivers was now a ticking time bomb that could explode at any time. On October 10, 1999, Irvin sustained a neck injury that ended his career during a game against the Philadelphia Eagles. Television cameras captured the moment, but so did his friends' and teammates' emotional reaction. Sanders' presence at that precise moment, praying for his wounded comrade, represented the sincere concern behind their public appearances. Irvin was found to have spinal stenosis, a narrowing of the spinal column that had gone unnoticed during his professional life. Irvin's remarkable career came to an end at the age of 33 due to the injury, which also served as a wake-up call regarding the destructive road he had been on. Sanders was reminded of the vulnerability of football and the value of the bonds formed along the road by witnessing his friend's career come to an abrupt end. Retirement, however, would not put a stop to Irvin's problems. If anything, losing football, the one constant in his life that had given him direction and structure, would push him into even more sinister territory. Beyond these violent episodes, Deion Sanders is aware of the terrible truth about Michael Irvin. It's a reality about addiction, despair, and the near-death experience of a guy. The playmaker's ascent and descent, creating an extravagant empire. In order to comprehend how Michael Irvin came to be capable of the brutality and self-destruction we have just watched, we must go back to the beginning of his ascent to fame and the establishment of an empire based on skill, conceit, and ultimately excess that would devour everything in its path. The biography of Michael Jerome Irvin starts in the Fort Lauderdale, Florida projects, where he was born into poverty but endowed with extraordinary athletic skill and an unwavering drive to succeed. Irvin came to Dallas with a swagger and self-assurance that had made him a standout at the University of Miami after being selected 11th overall by the Dallas Cowboys in the 1988 NFL Draft. However, There were indications of the volatile nature that would ultimately show up in such catastrophic ways even before he rose to professional positions. The tone for his future was established on his first day at Miami.
My first day, I'm just a freshman. I get into it at the training table. First of all, I'd never seen this kind of food before, at the meal table. And we had this big offensive lineman. And this dude just bullied everybody, right? And the freshmen have to eat last. I took the tray, smashed it across his head.
This was more than simply a case of freshman hazing gone wrong. It was a sneak peek at Iran's unwillingness to put up with what he considered to be disrespect, regardless of the repercussions. Jimmy Johnson, his college coach, saw Iran's potential for trouble as well as his brilliance right away.
Jimmy called me in the office. I said, this joker finna send me home. I just got here. I just got here, right? And then a couple weeks later, we're freshmen working a freshman's workout, right? And we get the music box.
The pattern was already in place. Even when it was obviously in his best advantage, Irvin would not back down from a conflict. He would later exhibit the same kind of focus that made him so successful on the football field in increasingly risky ways off it. Irvin joined a franchise that was in transition when he got to Dallas. In 1988, the Cowboys had just finished a 313 season, and their new coach, Jimmy Johnson, was attempting to start over. With Irvin's arrival, one of the most prosperous and contentious dynasties in NFL history began. Irvin set franchise records and was selected to 5 Pro Bowls during his 12-year tenure with the Dallas Cowboys, 1988 to 1999, amassing 750 grabs for 94 yards and 65 touchdowns. Along with running back Emtd Smith and quarterback Troy Aikman, Irvin was a member of the renowned triplets who helped Dallas win 3 Super Bowl titles in 1992, 1993, and 1995. However, success developed conceit, and conceit bred the perilous notion that the Dallas Cowboys were exempt from the rules. The team's quick rise from 115 in 1989 to Super Bowl winners by 1992 gave rise to a party culture that made players feel untouchable. When Jimmy Johnson left the club following the 1993 season and was replaced by Barry Switzer, whose coaching style was far more lenient, the culture shift became most noticeable.
How bad did the culture of misbehaving get?
Jimmy kept a tight rein on all of us, even through the off season. All of those off season workouts, they were voluntary, mandatory. So they're voluntary, but you better be here. That kind of a thing, or you may not be here.
The Cowboys players were free to act on their worst instincts when Johnson's penalty was lifted. As the team's biggest star and emotional leader, Michael Irvin also designed what would turn out to be the most infamous party house in NFL history.
I mean, back in Dallas, you had the White House, which is, kind of like basically a brothel, if nothing else.
Yeah, and basically, that's what it was. And that's what we did, and we did have an extra house. And after just thinking I didn't want to go to hotels and all the problems that caused.
The White House was more than a moniker. The focus of the Cowboys' decline into debauchery was a 2-story brick home located at 115 Dorset Drive in Irving, Texas. To protect Irvin, it was leased in the name of teammate Alvin Harper. In the 1990s, the monthly cost of the residence was between $2,000 and $3,000.
So I thought that maybe I should get some guys together and we just buy an extra house, and we did. We had an extra house. It was right around the corner. I mean, you go in the backyard and you can see the practice field. So we practiced right there.
Which means you could be on the practice field and see the White.
This close proximity wasn't accidental. It served as a metaphor for the extent to which the Cowboys organization had succumbed to the culture of excess. Players could almost view their workplace from their playground, thanks to the house's clever placement, just 100 yards from the team's Valley Ranch practice facility. The White House included areas set aside for sexual activity, marijuana rooms, cocaine ecstasy rooms, and 5 themed rooms devoted to various vices. As the operation's self-described president, Irvin oversaw logistics with military accuracy. Weekly meetings was placed from Sunday night to Friday after practice. 72-hour benders that usually featured 10, 20, and 50 women, including fans, escorts, and strippers hired from nearby businesses like Baby Dolls. Irvin's large salary covered the costs of the operation, which was financed by player contributions. Deion Sanders entered this setting in 1995. Due in great part to Iran's influence, Sanders signed a record $35 million contract to join the Cowboys. Their friendship, which had been developed by rivalry and respect for one another, would be put to the test by the poisonous atmosphere they now shared.
How did y'all get Deion to defect and come on over to Dallas after the first go-around?
Oh, no, that was me. I recruited Deion. He said, yeah. He said, I've been talking to his people. I said, all right, you talk to his people. I'm gonna talk to him. I'm gonna call him.
Right, the source.
Right. So I called.
Sanders was recruited by Irvin for reasons other than football. The goal was to include his friend in the kingdom he had established. An empire where excess was not only accepted, but even encouraged, with little regard for the law.
So I told him, I said, hey, listen, I told him I'm gonna set something up for you when you come on in. You come in town, I'm gonna set something up. Then I gotta set this thing up at the club called Guantanamo Mirage. Help me get Deion.
Despite his flamboyant primetime demeanor, Sanders' attitude on the team's party culture differed significantly from Irvin's. During his term in the White House from 1995 to 1996, Sanders attended events, but his evangelical Christian faith prevented him from becoming more involved. As the Cowboys' culture continued to spiral out of control, this difference in strategy would become more crucial. Sanders upheld boundaries that would ultimately shield him from the worst effects of the White House era, while Irvin descended farther into excess. The events were characterized as non-stop orgies with unrestricted drinking and drug use. Irvin said years later, in that room, you may be smoking marijuana, after players boasted about their exploits. They might be doing ecstasy, coke, or anything else in this room. Suspensions, injuries, and the team's eventual downfall were all signs of the culture's toll. What had begun as a celebration of achievement had turned into something far more sinister. A methodical collapse of accountability and discipline that would ruin lives and ruin careers.